Okay, next let's talk about tonicization. That means is a temporary change in the key. I'm looking at the Bach here to see if we had a tonicization. I don't know that we actually did. We had modulations. Um, it could be that over here, I think we were toying with uh, calling this area a tonicization. The thing about tonicization is you can think of it just like a key change, but one that doesn't stick. It's like you tried to change keys, but uh, it fell back to the original key, right? So the question that everyone always asks is, how long does a tonicization need to be in order to be considered a key change? And there's not a good answer for that, unfortunately. Um, a tonicization can happen for 1 bar, 2 bars, 3 bars, um, 4 bars. It all depends on the context. If it was longer than 8 bars, I'd say you've probably modulated. You've probably modulated to a new key. But it's a matter of opinion whether something is a tonicization or a modulation if it's short. If it's long, if it's very clearly a significant part of the piece that you've switched keys to, then it's almost certainly a modulation, and there's not much debate to that. But if it's short, then I would call it a tonicization. It just means we've temporarily tonicized a new key. Think of it like when you're a kid and you go visit like the sheriff and they give you like a badge and they say, we're going to deputize you. And like, you're a deputy now because they just gave you a badge. But then you leave, and you're like, you're not really like a cop. That's kind of the same thing. So deputization, we're basically going to deputize a key and say, you're now tonic. And then like a few minutes later, we're going to be like, no, but not really. Because not really. So this would actually not be one because we started in D, we moved to A here, and then we stay in A up until here we move to G. So that I would call that a modulation because we didn't go back to D, and we stayed there for a good, what looks like, I don't know, 8 bars or so, maybe even more. Now it's looking like this G is going to be a tonicization. It kind of looks like. Doesn't look like we're going to stay in G for really long because right here, and I see C sharps. So I think we're moving back out of G already right here. If that's true, once we analyze this, then I would call this a tonicization because we've really just been in G for 2 bars, maybe 3. We could call this G. So even so, 3 bars is not really enough in this context for me to call it a modulation. I would call this a tonicization. If think we're really moving back to either D or A or anywhere else really, we were here for such a brief amount of time that we're probably not going to call it a full key change. And it's definitely not a secondary dominant. This is a secondary dominant. But secondary dominant just means a single chord. It doesn't mean an area. Tonicization and modulation refer to whole areas. So that's tonicization. Let's now talk about modulation.